Hello, my name is Daniel Crane, and I am the program director for the Center for Creative Entrepreneurship. And you are listening to Global Industry Spotlight, a conversational series with entrepreneurs, organizations, businesses, and different people in the creative industries about their work. We are streaming live out of the Comcast Business Startup Studio, a space located at 2112, Chicago's first music, film, and tech incubator. I wanted to let everyone know about an upcoming event. Our next Music Bloom is happening on October 20th at the Hyde Park Arts Center. Go to cceglobal.org and check out that event. The last ones have been very exciting and engaging. The event is focused on music, so it's basically a professional development series tour that we are doing. And our next one, and the one after that will be November 14th at the Segundo Ruiz Belvis Center. Uh, Today, the Global Industry Spotlight is on Maria Luisa, a Latin dancer, choreographer, and dance therapist born and raised in Chicago. Latin dance has always been an important part of her life, as it is ingrained in her Puerto Rican culture. She began as a self taught dancer and has been dancing professionally for 7 years. The work she creates is rooted in mindfulness, celebrates culture, and is intentional about connection to self, others, and community. Her work is a fusion of technical performance and mindful expression with a specialty in Latin dance genres of salsa and bachata. She uses movement for healing and is passionate about using dance as a form of storytelling, interpersonal connection, and expression. I'm very excited to have our guest today. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so I'd love to. For the last 7 years, you've been a professional dancer.
hmm
Can you tell us what that looks like for you, what it looks like for you, like the year one of being a professional dancer.
hmm Yeah. So whenever people ask me, like, how long have you been dancing?
Yeah.
I usually tell them, kind of my whole life
Right.
because, you know, I dance Afro Latin dance, which is a cultural dance,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, I think it even stems further than just the past 7 years because this is the dance that's rooted, like like you said in my bio, in
Mm-hmm.
my culture, in my heritage. And so I was dancing salsa at family parties with my
Right.
titis
Right.
and in the community. It's really like rooted in community. Um, but year one is, I studied dance movement therapy and counseling for my master's
Oh
degree.
wow.
And so I, kind of was doing different student run teams in college and in high school. And then when I was graduating college, I had this thought, I almost like this crisis of what am I going to do with my life? But I studied psychology undergrad because I had this passion for trying to understand why people are the way that they are. And I
Mm-hmm.
really wanted to help people. And I had this really strong connection to dance and this really strong passion for dance. And I never even knew what dance therapy was until I was doing an internship somewhere and I met another dance therapist. And so I was like, wow, there's this profession that can merge my two passions of psychology and dance. And so, I guess that was sort of my first inroad to doing dance as a profession.
Right.
So I did that. I got my degree in dance therapy.
And can you tell us what are the basic concepts of dance therapy?
Yeah, dance therapy is the psychotherapeutic use of dance and move to promote emotional, physical, mental, and spiritual well being. So I like to think of it as a therapy that can help you connect the mind and the body because what we're thinking and feeling is expressed through how we move in the world, but the opposite is true too. So how we move can affect how we think and we feel. So dance therapy, if you think of, you know, traditional psychotherapy. You usually sit with someone
Right.
and you're
Like
verbally
now.
right. You're you're verbally talking through,
Yeah.
the things that you're dealing with.
Right.
And dance therapy adds the element of dance and movement. And sometimes it's hard to explain because everyone does it a little bit differently. So it
Mm-hmm.
depends on your own experience with dance, who it is that you're working with. And I think, when I graduated, I kind of had this question of like, okay, what do I do now? Like, I'm a dance therapist, I got my degree, but what do I do with that? And a lot of um, there are not a lot of dance therapy positions out there. So over the years, I've been sort of making it my own and finding my own artistic voice and who I am as a dancer, as a dance therapist. And I sort of have all these different venues of dance, like I'm a choreographer, I'm a dance therapist, I'm a performer. So I think, my inroad to dancing professionally was becoming a dance therapist after my graduate degree. But, I sort of I came back to Chicago and I had been dancing Afro Latin dance in all of these different areas. Like in college, it was sort of
Hmm.
a student run team, and I was the director the last couple years. And then I came back to Chicago and I really wanted to develop myself and as a dancer, as a professional dancer. And so I joined a few teams here in Chicago. Um, I joined Legacy Dance Association. I was part of Gifted Souls and Cachimbo Dance Company. Um, and I started training a little bit more professionally, I guess you could say. I started teaching dance classes and started co directing one of the teams. So there was kind of like an evolution of what I was doing. I was training, and then I was like, wow, I really want to do this a little bit more. I want to expand who I am as a dancer. So I started teaching and then I started directing. And that was great. And usually, just to give some context of how that works, in the Afro Latin dance scene, it's sort of like you train on the company, and then usually we're preparing for a big performance. Usually that's a salsa congress. And it's intense because you're performing for maybe like 2 to 3 minutes
Wow.
on stage,
Yeah.
but it's so technical and it's so energetic and performative, and there's all this work that goes into it. Like we spend hours, right? Like you see our costumes, we spend hours putting each rhinestone on that costume. And we design the costumes ourselves, so it's a lot that goes into it. And so I did that for a few
And
years.
are these contests or are they just more presentations?
They're just presentations, but there are big competitions. I never got into the competition realm. I just solely did presentations.
And typically a team, how many like performances will they have a year?
So it really depends.
Okay.
I mean, sometimes we would perform maybe once or twice a year this same routine. And something I was noticing in the scene, this is sort of where my, I guess, artistic development sort of evolved a little bit. And this was maybe, I'd say like 3 years ago. Because we were putting in all this work and all this time and all this energy to perform maybe once or twice a year, and I wasn't noticing that we were getting, like, sometimes we would get gigs outside of that avenue,
Hmm.
but it wasn't often. And I think it depends who you are. It depends like what connections you have, and oftentimes, if you're not like directing the team or if you're not teaching, those are ways that you get paid and compensated for your work. But as a performer, I feel like most of the time I was coming out of pocket to
Mm.
perform.
Hmm.
And that, unfortunately, we live in a capitalistic world and value equals
Right.
money. And I was just thinking, like, I want to, if I'm a professional dancer, I feel like I want to and I should be getting paid to perform. This
Right.
doesn't quite make sense
And
to me.
why were you paying to perform? Just because of like the cost of costumes and all the time you had to take to get to rehearsals and that kind of thing? What was the
Yeah.
cost that you were?
The cost of costumes,
Yeah.
usually for salsa congresses, you have to pay for, like, it's a weekend, so usually you'll stay at the venue, which is usually at a hotel, so you
Right.
pay for your
Oh man.
your yeah, you pay for your hotel room. And then there's
Right.
performers passes. Some of it, I mean, it also, again, it depends who you are. Like if you're teaching a workshop at the event, perhaps you're be getting paid for that, but
Hmm.
not all the teams get a room, or not all the teams get free passes. It depends what team you're on. So I don't really know I don't know what their business model is, but I was noticing that I don't feel like I was being, I wanted to make money off of performing.
Right. No, absolutely.
And a lot of people, do it for the love of dance, which is amazing. But I had this thought of, like, I want to change this for myself, because it is so much time and so much energy. And I love that world and I love this genre, and I'm so passionate about it. But I came to a point where I was almost in this, mm, I guess, identity crisis in terms of like, who am I as an artist? Like, I could continue doing this and I love it and it's fun and it's great. Um, but I wanted to do something different. I wanted to do something more for myself and something that felt like me. And and Afro Latin dance, again, it's awesome, but it's very like structured,
Mm-hmm.
and there's almost like a formula of what you do to put on the stage for performance. And I was like, I want to get out of that structure. I want to do something that feels true to me. um and so I thought about like, who am I? And I'm Puerto Rican. I'm from Chicago. I love Afro Latin dance. I also love spoken word and poetry and live music. And so there was sort of this turning point in my artistic career where I was like, ooh, I want to do something different. And so this project that I've been working on for the last few years, called Raíces to
Yeah,
Roots,
awesome.
was
Yep.
born.
And
Um,
congratulations on that.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you. And the other piece of that, again, was the compensation piece. So I was like, how do I get paid to do the work, to make dance and to perform dance? And how do I pay other artists that I'm working with? And so I was doing a lot of research and I was talking with other artists. And that's when I started, finding out about all these grants
I know.
that
Isn't
were
that an amazing
available.
thing that happens? I
Yeah.
I was so surprised. For years I was playing music and I had no idea about grants.
Mhm.
Just the access to be able to build your own projects.
Mhm.
And I mean, and it's definitely a lot of work to do,
Yeah.
but it's like, oh, there's actually foundations focused just in music or just in dance who are supporting different types of cultures or are interested in this. And I think that's really an eye-opening thing and very important for artists to just be aware of, that there are lots of foundations and lots of grants out there. I
Mhm.
mean, you just have to kind of find the right people that are into the thing that you're doing. you
Exactly.
know um so you started writing grants.
I started writing grants, and
Yeah,
I'm not a grant writer, and
we all
and
become grant
we
writers.
become grant writers. I have become a grant writer, and I'm like, wow, this is why this is somebody's job because it's a whole thing.
Yeah,
And so, I started finding out about different grants, and like you said, there's ones that are specific to certain genres of art. So
right.
I think the first one I applied to was Chicago Dance Makers Forum. And that actually was super helpful. And I would encourage any dancers out there to check them out because I've stayed connected with the
Hmm.
organization and they've been so supportive. Um, and even the process of writing the grant, like the first grant I applied for, I did not get.
Right.
I was a finalist, but I learned so much about myself as an artist because the questions they ask you, you have to write about who you are as an artist. What are your goals as an artist? What is your project? What is your budget? What is your timeline?
Hmm.
And it really helped me to think about, all of those things, which was so helpful in producing the show eventually and just learning about who I was. So at that critical time of like, who am I as an artist? It helped me really figure those things out. And as and I didn't get the grant, but I was like, you know what? Even in applying for the grant, I noticed, you have to turn in work samples. And so I was like, well, I need work to show
Yeah.
that I know that I can do this,
Yeah, it
that
shows the
I
gaps.
exactly that I have the ability to put on this show that I'm presenting here. So I was like, well, I didn't get the grant, but I'm still gonna do my best to follow this project through. And I think I applied for DCASE, the Individual Artists Program.
Hmm.
And that was the first grant that I got. And it was only $1,000, but it was so motivating to me because
Right.
I was like, wow, other people believe in this project and like, we got some money, let's do it.
Right.
So that was a big eye opener for me. And after some practice, I've been getting pretty good at it, I think.
Yeah, I can relate to that 100%. It's interesting how you start to figure out the language of
Hmm.
the grants, and you have all the things like the template for the budget
Hmm.
and the work samples and all. You get to see kind of the gaps in your project.
Exactly.
and you fine tune your bio. I mean, it's so interesting how, when people ask for your bio, I'm always like, this is not quite me. It's like it's constantly evolving, right?
Always evolving.
Like I did this, just like it's too corporate, or it's like, I focus too much on this.
Mhm.
Um, and I love this idea how our careers kind of evolve, right? So you talked about how you started out and you were doing kind of this one track of dancing and
Mhm.
saw what that scene was like and was like, okay, I'm into this. Like, I like the training. And then you start to be like, it's feeling not fulfilling, whether it
Mhm.
be financially or spiritually, or, and then for artists, I think for us, we have to create our own space
Mhm.
at some point,
Absolutely.
to one, be able to figure out how to for it to make financial sense, but
Mhm.
also for it to be meaningful.
Exactly.
And so talk about kind of just the evolution of this project, um, and where it is right now.
Absolutely. Well, Raíces to Roots is a theatrical production and it weaves dance and spoken word and live music to tell the story of Chicago Puerto Ricans. And so like I said, I had this idea because I want to do something that was true to me. And I thought about like what is home to me, and Chicago and Puerto Rico are home to me. And so I knew that this would also be true for other people, and other people would really gain meaning from this project. And so I was like, okay, well, I've got the dance part down. I need a poet. So it was really like gathering my team because I could not do this on my own. It was
Hmm.
sort of like outside of a scope of what I had done before. So, I reached out to Luis Stubens, aka Logan
Logan
Lou.
Lou, shout
Shout out
out.
to Logan Lou, who is another Boricua poet in
Yeah,
Chicago.
absolutely, for
And I
sure.
remember telling him my idea, and he was so down from the
Yeah,
moment I sat down with him, and we like barely knew each other. And he was like, "Yes, I'm down. Let's do it." And so he's been kind of like my main artistic collaborator, and we work really closely on this project. And because he's connected to a lot of musicians,
yeah,
we were able to sort of bring a band together. And then I sort of dipped into my connections to the Afro Latin dance community and got some dancers who were willing to do the project. Everybody in the project uh, identifies as Boricua, which is also a really cool aspect about it. And so, yeah, we started, what I love about the process of creating this is that, again, it felt true to who I was. So, like, we were meditating together, we were
mm,
moving together, we were having a lot of discussions about what themes we wanted to have in the piece, what was important to us. The choreo, it was really a collaborative process, which I really loved. So, as we meditated and moved together, and again, like, I bring in my dance therapy background to do this, to be able to create the space with everybody, to make sure that we have like a voice and everybody feels seen and heard. So when we were moving together, some of the movements that the musicians came up with or the other dancers are sort of sprinkled throughout the piece. And another really cool aspect of it was just the sort of the collaboration between the different art forms, because it's
mm,
multidisciplinary.
right.
So instead of just like saying, all right, usually what I'm used to when I choreograph in the past has been, here's the music, you're going to dance to the music.
Hmm.
And so I really sort of like played around with, okay, here are the words and here's the poetry. How can I create movement to the words? And vice versa. So, like, sometimes I would just create movement without music, without poetry. And then Lou would take the movement and, or take the movement and create poetry to the movement. So it's really interesting, the process.
Where did you guys rehearse? Did you have a space that you could kind of workshop this, or?
Mhm. Yeah, the other piece of it was, I, I'm I want to bring this up because it all ties into that, but the production piece,
Hmm.
because I'm not a producer,
Right.
neither of us are, but at the time I was connected with Segundo Ruiz Belvis
Hmm.
Cultural Center because I wanted to teach dance lessons, and
Yeah.
I was teaching before, but I was like, I want to do something a little bit more community oriented, and SRBCC is in the neighborhood that I grew up in Hermosa Park. And for those of you who don't know, it's one of the longest standing Latinx cultural centers in Chicago, focused on Afro Puerto Rican arts and culture. And so I went there, I talked to Omar, the director, and I was like, I want to teach classes. And he was super supportive. And then he was like, well, we also want to support you as an artist. And like, if you have any projects, we would love to support you and highlight you as an artist. And I was like, oh, wow. Well, thank you. I have this project actually that I'm really excited about. And so that was super helpful because,
Yeah.
again, it was somebody who was like, I see you and I want to support you and let's do it. So all of that support was just so helpful. And so, they supported us with rehearsal space, um, some like financial support, and also help with some of the production pieces too to put on the show.
Yeah, I mean, thanks to you, we're actually doing the music bloom at Segundo. Um, Omar is great to work with and seems like a real champion of creative arts, and
Mhm.
focusing definitely in Afro Latin. He really like promotes that culture.
Mhm.
Um, so now you have the show. It's
Mhm.
been running for a little bit. What's next? Like how do you grow a show? Like what are some of your goals, or
Mhm.
where is it heading?
Yeah. Well, the nice thing about the show is that it's sort of like vignettes and
Mm-hmm.
stories. So we've been getting lots of different gigs off of the show for the past couple years, which is really awesome. And the cool thing about it is, it can be from 5 minutes long to an hour long show. And the night we also have an interactive portion at the end where I guide the audience through a meditation and we create a poem together and we dance together. So I like to interweave all of my creative self. So I bring in my dance therapy background for that. But the nice thing, and we've performed at Elevate Dance Festival with Chicago Dance Makers Forum and at the MCA for their family days. And every time we do it in a different space, it kind of grows and it kind of evolves, and we can make it very site specific, which is really exciting. We recently got a grant from NALAC, which is the National Association of Latino Arts and Culture. And so we
Congrats.
Thank you. We created the grant to develop the project. So we're sort of in like this new phase, and we're in the create like the nitty-gritty creative process of like how do we want to expand on this?
Mm,
How do we want it to grow? And so that's a really interesting place to be. I think at first I was sort of like stuck in what to do with it because I was like, I want to like maybe I want to do something completely new just so I can be
mm,
invigorated as an artist. But I'm someone who really pays attention to details. So it's actually now that we're starting to get into the development phase, thinking about the little details here and there of how can like this piece is really great and how can we expand that. And this piece, I wasn't so excited
mm-hmm.
about it. Maybe we could take it out or we can replace it with something else. So that's sort of where we're at right now, and we're really excited because we have some really awesome ideas for how to just grow it and expand it.
Will you
Stay
tour it?
tuned.
Will you think about touring it at all, or perform? Have you performed outside of Chicago, with the piece yet?
We have no, we haven't performed outside of Chicago. And I think, we have this sort of like trajectory
Right.
of where we want to go. And so we really want to make the show like we want to hammer down those little
Yeah,
details
of
because we
course. No,
did it the first
absolutely.
time and we're
Yeah.
like, okay, this is a great start and it was amazing, but how can we really create something that we feel great about? And I think then, the next phase would be to tour it because I think um there are lots of communities, nationally but also internationally that would really connect to the
Yeah,
themes.
absolutely.
There's a huge Puerto Rican diaspora here in the States, but also internationally I feel like other people who anybody can sort of identify to these themes, and the theme is really about home, and so that is on the horizon, but we
Yeah.
really first want to make sure we have like a package that feels really solid.
Yeah, and to zoom out just a little bit, what is your feeling from just the dance scene in Chicago? What are things that you think are really good about it, and what are some of the gaps or the
Mhm.
needs for dancers, or for people to be able to create shows or things
Mhm.
that you're doing?
That's a great question. I mean, Chicago has a really robust dance scene. And are you talking dance in general, or are you talking Afro Latin dance scene?
I would say both.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, just a kind of a general, because I remember I was talking to someone about how there's not a lot of space
Hmm.
for there's not a lot of dance studios. Like a lot of the
Yeah.
dance studios have closed down because of COVID, and so that's been a little bit of an issue. I don't know if that still is an issue,
Hmm.
but yeah, I mean, I guess you could speak to just the Afro Latin scene in general, or just some some thoughts on Chicago's kind of dance ecosystem, as they would call it.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of amazing dancers out there. I wish there were opportunities that because I learned about a lot through just like my own research, but
Hmm.
I wish there were opportunities for more collaboration, or opportunities to find out, who else is out there and how we can learn from each other.
Like other dancers.
Yeah, other
Hmm.
dancers, even other dance genres.
Right.
I would say
Everyone's kind of in their silos a little
everyone's,
bit.
yeah.
Chicago's a little like that. I think is the same in the music scene as well.
Mhm.
There's kind of it's very siloed.
It is.
You
It
know.
is. There's like these dancers live over here and these
Right.
dancers live over there. And even within the Afro Latin dance scene, like
Right.
you're on this company and you're on that
Yeah.
dance
Yeah. Yeah.
company, and
Yeah.
everybody's
Yeah.
like, "What dance company are you on?" And it's like, well, and people ask me like, "Are you dancing still?" But I'm like, "Well, I'm not on a dance company, but I'm doing my own thing." But
Right. Right.
um, I also, one thing, we talked about how like it's really hard to like get gigs. I wish there was
Mm.
more opportunities, or more just awareness of opportunities to perform and get paid to perform, because that's one thing that makes me really sad. We have so many amazingly talented, hardworking dancers, and it's like the people who are getting paid are just the people who maybe have dance studios or the team, but that's not everybody's track.
Right.
Some people want to be performers,
Right.
and that's awesome. And I wish there were more opportunities and people had more awareness of what was available to them. And even now, I don't even know all the things. I'm like, I wish there were more opportunities that I knew about. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer, and it's definitely something that here at Center for Creative Entrepreneurship, we're looking at like, what kind of resources can we provide? What are the needs? Like, how do you, aggregate all those things together, right? All the opportunities
Hmm.
for the creative industries. Obviously, the creative industries is a big, it's a big thing
Yeah.
to say, but kind of trying to approach it sector by sector. And I think each
Hmm.
community has its own unique needs for sure. But I think for musicians, and just speaking from my own experience, being able to figure out opportunities, it took a long time.
Hmm.
It took a long time of playing lots of gigs where I didn't get paid much, or meeting new people, and and
Yeah.
it eventually evolved. Um, but I'm wondering if that kind of can change a little bit, where
Yeah.
there's just a little more access for younger dancers coming into the scene, or even someone who's like older and is like, hey, I want to start doing this.
Hmm.
What are the opportunities?
Absolutely.
Um, how do you deal with fear or doubt? In your career.
You know, I think it's just I lean on my people.
Mm,
I think it's important to have a support network of people who hype you up. I'm blessed to have really supportive friends, who are also artists, who support me through their motivation and who hype me up when I'm doing the things. Like they come to all my shows, they're like
mhm,
always asking me what's next. They're there to sort of like bounce ideas off of. And so like you just can't do it alone. Like you need your community. And I've had to and I have to hype myself up and I have to remind
mm,
myself of who I am. Because also I because of my background in dance, I feel like some people's dance trajectory is way different than mine.
mm,
Like I said, I began as a self-taught dancer. Like
right.
I didn't grow up having money to take professional dance classes as a kid, and I think at a certain point I doubted myself and saying like, well, I wasn't dancing professionally since I was this many years old, or whatever the case. And there's like idea I think people have around dance, that like if you didn't train in ballet or tap or jazz or all of these sort of like Eurocentric styles, like those styles are not the foundation of every single dance.
Right. Right.
But I think
That's
sometimes,
one track.
exactly,
Right.
but you get in your head about like your lack of experience in some way.
Man.
And I have to remind myself, like, no, like I've been dancing my whole life. This is my track, and this is what I'm doing, and I don't have to compare myself to other people. Not to say that, I think that's the biggest thing. Like, you can't compare yourself to other people.
It's hard.
Yeah.
It's a hard thing. So I did study in a conservatory, and and I still have imposter syndrome and scenes and different
Mhm.
spaces where I feel like, oh, you have those moments where you're like, why am I here? And how you kind of like work through that of, no, this is like who I am. This
Mhm.
is, I'm supposed to be here. Like
Mhm.
having a little bit of that faith, that you're supposed to be in the space that you are. And I think you brought up the great point of just having a community to kind of check back in and just being like,
Absolutely.
everything good? Yeah, yeah,
It's
you're
so
good.
important.
um, what will you never compromise on in your career?
Authenticity. I always want to be true to who I am. And there have been times, I think when I was just starting my dance career, of like there was an opportunity that came up, and maybe I just took the opportunity because I was like, oh, this is an opportunity, I have to
Mm,
take it. But in my gut I was like, I'm not really passionate about this.
yeah.
This is not really me. And then I did it, and then I felt, it felt kind of icky, or it just felt
Mm,
didn't felt feel fulfilling. And so just having faith in the opportunities are going to come. And if I just stay authentic to who I am and what I'm passionate about, all the right opportunities will come. And I have like faith in the universe that, like, if you manifest those things by turning down the things you don't want, then the universe hears, okay, that's not for her. Let's stop bringing her these
right.
opportunities.
Yeah.
And the things that you do want will come. So I got to listen to my body first and foremost, and I got to listen to my gut. And if anything doesn't feel right, then it's a no.
Yeah, no, I definitely adhere to that as well. Just being able to, you know, the power of saying no,
Hmm.
and having that faith that you can, that doors will open, the ones that you want, or you have to
Hmm.
create them, which you did.
Exactly.
And I think for a lot of artists, I mean that's my story as well. Of I don't like this space, or like this is not quite what I'm looking for. I need to create my own.
Hmm.
Um, can you do you have a recommendation for a book, podcast, song, as we talked about, bar? Someone else said that or space or something that inspires you personally or professionally.
Hmm. Man, I have to make a shout out to this book that I read. Um, because I'm talking about like who I am and my roots. But it's called War Against All Puerto Ricans. And I feel like everybody should read this book.
Hmm.
It's part of history. Like a lot of people don't, and it's part of learning about my own history. And that's after I read it, it sort of invigorated me to, keep creating and sharing stories and educating people on different histories that have been silenced in the past. So I would recommend that book because it talks a lot about the history of Puerto Rico and the colonization that has happened, and all of the terrible things that I didn't know about a lot of the history in that book. But it, even just knowing about that empowers me. So that's one recommendation I would make for everybody.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you so much for coming and talking with me today. I love hearing about your journey, and also I know Logan Lou really well from like back in the Q4 days, and just seeing that the Races, I said it wrong. How do you say it again?
Raíces to roots.
Yeah, Raíces de Roots.
Okay.
Um, uh, you know, project looks incredible. I've not been able to see one of the performances, but everyone go and check it out. It looks absolutely amazing, and it's great to hear kind of about your journey. So thanks for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me.
Again, my name is Daniel Crane, and I am the program director for the Center for Creative Entrepreneurship. And you have been listening to Global Industry Spotlight, a conversational series focused on talking with creatives, entrepreneurs, organizations, businesses, artists about their creative journey. Visit cceglobal.org. Check out what we have coming up. October 20th, Hyde Park Arts Center, the Music Bloom. It's going to be amazing. Wishing everyone a wonderful end to their week. We will actually be back here tomorrow with a special global industry spotlight with Korean director, indie director from Asian Pop Up Cinema. So, wishing you all a wonderful end to the day. Take care.